girls, and welcome to another episode of the Hey Girl Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Jenn Parker. Today, my co-host, Bethany, interviews one of her in real life, real friends, Katrina Stevens. One thing I'm just going to say is that you're going to hear a lot of laughter and just a lot of audacity in the story. So I cannot wait for you to hear this story of Katrina and just her sharing her life with us. So I'm going to keep this super short and sweet so we can jump right into the interview. But I do want to say that Katrina has blessed us by being a part of our one-day all-girls conference that we do every year in the fall. This year, we're doing it November 18th at Grace Baptist Church in Hudson, Mass. And we're so excited for it this year. If you would like information, we will put our link to our website in the show notes so you can get all the up-to-date information about speakers and labs and all that good stuff. But we just want you to know that we love Katrina. We love that she's a part of Simply Beautiful, and we love Simply Beautiful. So without further ado, here is Bethany's interview with Katrina.
All right, girls, I am here with my very dear friend, Katrina Stevens. Do you want to say hi to the girls?
Oh, hey, girls.
And the few boys that listen?
Oh, hey, boy.
That's a really sad assumption. There might be more than one, okay?
Oh, hey, dude.
We'll go with that. Katrina and I have kind of a funny friendship story. Because we met in Mexico when I was leading a team of my students on a missions trip, and you and your husband were working for YWAM, which we'll get into your story in a minute. But my favorite part is in Mexico, we had like that instant friend connection.
Oh,
Would you say, am I imagining this?
Oh my gosh. I looked forward to your visits every half year since you were coming down twice a year. I counted down the days.
I love that.
Totally.
We made some pretty darn good memories in Mexico. And my kids thinking loved you because you were there when they went to Mexico.
Yes.
So,
and we rode horses on the beach.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that.
And we didn't get any bug bites.
That's so true. Or any diseases, despite the appearance of those Mexican horses.
They were a bit ghetto.
It was a little sketch. So we came down. You guys were working at YWAM. Mm-hmm. Loved you from the start. Kind of that instant friendship. I remember meeting your husband. My husband will still say this. I went home and I'm like, I met you like the younger version of you. Your husband reminded me so much of my husband. And that was part of this like endearing, I don't know, it was great. But then we knew that it was kind of only for a season because you were not going to be there in Mexico forever. Right. So I still remember saying goodbye to you and thinking, I can't believe that God brought this girl into my life and she's just going to be gone. So I suppressed my emotions, mainly because you were off to Africa as a missionary. Yeah. Who's going to argue that? So I'm like, okay, fine. Go save the orphans. Whatever, Katrina. I get it. So off you went, saving orphans. And I can't remember whether it was through Facebook or text message. But when you messaged me to be like, oh, hey, guess what? I'm moving to Boston. And I thought you were messing with me. But you were actually moving to Boston.
Mostly for you. Some would call me a stalker.
And I'm okay with that. But your husband, he's kind of became a student he did become a student at Gordon Conwell. And just, I love like that God has brought our paths together. The memories that we've made here. And then we went on true friendship is when you vacationed together. Back at your parents' house in California, still one of my favorite family vacations.
And then we still liked each other afterwards. I think that's a sign.
That's legit. That's like
lasting friendship.
Friends for life.
Yes.
So I know a lot of wonderful things about you, but I would love for our listeners to hear more of who you are and your story. So why don't you start at the beginning, tiny little Katrina, and work your way to the present?
Well, I feel like we really need to start before that with my parents.
No.
Just kidding.
This is a family show, Katrina.
So I was born in California.
Yeah.
I am Southern Californian through and through. In fact, my very first winter ever was when we moved here 3 years ago. So my husband, like Bethany said, so my husband could go to court in Conwell, and it was what they called the Snowmageddon.
Oh, yeah.
And that was my first experience of winter. And I was like, that's it. Get me out of here. Like, I will not live here. This is not okay. That at first I was like, oh my gosh, it's beautiful. Look at that snow. It's so pretty. And then probably about like, because that started in February. And then probably the end of February, I was like, all right, I'm packing. Let's move back to Southern California.
I'm out.
Yes, because I love heat. Like right now, this summer coming up, I'm so excited, waiting for it. So anyhow, Southern Californian through and through. But really my heart is just to travel. I love adventure. I love traveling. I love going wherever God calls me. When I was 18, I moved away from home and moved to Hawaii. And I tell people I was running away from home because I had spent the last 2 years of my life, even though I had grown up in a Christian family from the age about 16 to about 18, I completely turned away from Christ. I decided I wanted nothing to do with my parents' religion or God. And I figured that if he was real, like they were telling me, that maybe one day I'd come back to him, but I just didn't want him to be real because I wanted to live selfishly. And so I went through a really hard time in my life where I walked away from Christ. I made poor decisions. Every weekend, my parents were afraid that they were going to get the call from a police officer that I was dead because I was drunk driving all the time. I was sleeping at random guys' houses. I was experimenting with a couple drugs and just put myself in really dangerous situations. And so when I hit 18, my parents made a contract for me that, yes, this is what my parents did, because they said, you're 18, you don't have to live under our roof anymore. So if you want to live here, and with that comes a cell phone and a car and a college education, if that's what you want, and you can live here for free, but you have to adhere to these rules. And I had to sign the contract. And one of them was that I had to go to church every Sunday morning.
I like this.
Yes. So no matter what state I was in, I had to go to church. And so I went to church, and I'd had just a couple of bad things that had led up to this point, that I was sitting in church, hungover, and I was at the point where I was like, God, I don't want to live like this. I don't know if I was actually praying. Actually, I know I wasn't praying, but I definitely was just sitting in that pew contemplating, what am I going to do with my life?
Yeah.
And it's the first time that God really directed me and spoke to me in the way that it was like so obviously clear, because I got this feeling that I needed to do YWAM. And I honestly don't remember ever hearing of YWAM before that. And YWAM is Youth with a Mission. It is a school kind of thing. They start as a school. You do 3 months of discipleship training and 2 months of a missions experience. And so when I came home and told my parents, I think I'm going to do something like YWAM instead of college. And my mom was ecstatic because she knew what YWAM was, even though I didn't. And then I kind of got over it. I was like, well, that was just a fleeting thing, and I was over it, but my mom was still stuck on it. And so my mom started researching and found a school in Hawaii. And obviously, as an 18-year-old girl, I was like, yeah, you want me to move Hawaii? You're going to pay for it? Perfect. I'm in. I broke up with my current boyfriend at the time because, in case I found a hot surfer in Hawaii.
Because Hawaii.
Hello.
Sorry, buddy.
And so she helped me complete the form to get into this YWAM school, and I ended up there. And while I was in Hawaii, that's really where I met God. That's where God just completely changed my life. And at one point, I was I'll just be real, I was making out with 2 different guys in one day.
I appreciate your realness. Like the same time?
No, one in the morning, one at night, like that kind of thing.
Kept them separated.
They were like really good friends though, so that was awkward.
Oh.
Yeah.
I see this ending badly for you.
Yeah, and I was still doing stupid stuff like going to the beach and drinking, and basically I did want to live like these people who were so into God, and it wasn't like the kind of we'll go to church on Sunday people. These were people that were like, no, God is the Lord of my life, and he's going to direct every step I make. And I was like, I don't know if I'm ever be that committed. Like, I don't know, that seemed a little extreme.
You wanted both. You wanted the good parts of that.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely. I also just wanted to be crazy and what I thought was free, but I didn't realize was seriously putting me in bondage. Obviously, looking back in hindsight, I'm like, wow, none of that was freeing. But for me, I was like, I just want to live free. I want to drink when I want to drink. I want to kiss who I want to kiss or more, or do what I want to do. And so when I went to this school, I was kind of still living that until I actually, I made out with these 2 different guys, went and was drinking on the beach, and I actually had this conviction, which I hadn't had in so long because I'd pushed conviction down for so long, that having this again, I was like, wow. And so I went and confessed to my leaders, and I basically told them, if you're going to send me home, can I call my parents and let them know that I flunked out of this school, this Christian school? and my leader she prayed about it. She prayed with me, and she kind of laughed, and she was like, no, I really feel like God's about to do something really big in your life.
Wow.
And so she just totally showed me grace. And, she walked me through, you need to go and talk with these guys. You need to go and talk to these friends that you've been wronging. You need to set things right. But then after you do all of this, you need to figure out what God has planned for you.
Was that the first opportunity someone gave you to not just receive grace, but in a way, teach you real freedom is walk back through and kind of apologies where apologies need to be, and then we're going to move forward rather than just, okay, whatever, you messed up, go home, figure your life out over there.
Probably. I mean, it probably wasn't. I did grow up in a really good church environment, a really good Christian environment, but it was the first time that it impacted me, that I actually grasped it, for sure. It's the first time that I remember it happening that way, and that it really made a difference.
You kind of recognized the weight of what was being handed to you. That's
absolutely
incredible. And how old were you at this point?
I had just turned 19.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was going back and trying to make things right, but then I went into class and I basically sat down and I was like, God, do I really want to go through all this hard work? Because sometimes, even though grace is free, sometimes that having to apologize and make things right is hard. Yeah. And so I was like, God, do I really want to do this? Do I really believe in you to this extent? Do I really believe that you care about me enough and that I care about you enough? Yeah. Is that really where I want to be? And so as I'm sitting there praying that prayer, I told God, I'm like, I need a sign. I need something physical, and I want to see gold dust, like when Moses came off the mountain and was covered, in that sparkle shimmer. Yeah. I want gold dust. And so I looked at my hands, and there was nothing. There was not even the slightest little sign. There was nothing physical at all. And I was like, all right, that's it. I'm going home. I'm just going to tell them I'm done. I would rather just flunk out than have to commit like these people are committing. Yeah. Because I know that it's hard to commit to the gospel to that extent. And so I didn't think I wanted to. So anyhow, I prayed for it, and that's probably the second time that I really heard God's voice, where it just went from my head to my heart of, is it really going to take something physical to know what you already know? And it hit me, and I just got chills, and we ended up going into this time. There was 90 people in this school, all in this room. We went into this time of worship that was very Holy Spirit filled. It was, I don't know if I can say this, but it was very charismatic. If you would have walked in, you probably would have thought we were cult. There was my 50-year-old school leader crowd surfing. There were people in a corner crying. There were people in a corner laughing. It was just so impactful. We were all just praising and worshiping, and it was from an iPod. It wasn't even a worship band or anything. Oh, wow. Somebody was playing an iPod that was playing worship music, and we just kept repeating Take It All by Hillsong United. You just got so many worship pastors fired around the nation, Katrina. God can use an iPod. On the flip side, Apple stocks just went up. You're welcome, Apple. And I think you also proved what we've known all along, that God is a Mac guy. Yes. Amen. We can end there. So anyway, at the end, the speaker of that week pulled us all together, and he was like, we're just going to end the time right now, and we're going to pray. And let's kind of just digest what happened. And we were sitting down on the floor after this incredible experience. I don't think I've ever worshiped God like that ever again. I really do think that's what heaven's going to be like. Like, it's not boring to sit there and worship God like that. I think that's totally going to be heaven. So this one guy stood up and he goes, "Oh my gosh, does anyone else have gold dust on their hands?"
No.
I am not kidding you. I was covered head to toe in gold dust. Like this shimmery, sparkly.
I have goosebumps
I
now.
get every time I tell this story. I get goosebumps. Wait, have I never told you this story before?
No.
For real? This is my testimony story. I share this story all the time.
Katrina, I feel like I don't even know you.
No, you're welcome to this insight of my life. This is how I really gave my life to Christ, was because I didn't need that proof. That was the best part, is I had already let go and been like, no, I don't know. I don't need a physical sign, but God was just like, I'm going to show off anyway. And not only am I going to give it to you, I'm going to give it to about 20 other people in this room, so that there is no denying later in life that this actually happened. There's no looking back and saying, did I dream that? Did I make that up?
Yeah.
In fact, my husband ended up meeting that speaker from that week years later.
Wow.
And confirmed the entire story with this speaker, because it's just proof that God is going to do it.
Goodness.
He's going to show off, and he can do those things.
He can do whatever he wants.
Right?
I love that.
Yes, he is not just a God stuck in the Bible. He is a live, active God. Then I ended up in Africa for that last 2 months of the mission part of that DTS through YWAM. And when I was in Africa, I always call that my honeymoon with God. It was like, I totally went with rose-colored glasses, obviously. I was still on this complete God high.
You and gold dust,
Right?
so yeah. So, I get that.
Yeah. And so then when I went, I just remember we saw miracle after miracle. We saw things happening that I had never, spiritually, that I had never seen before. And I just felt like my eyes were really open to our God is worth it. He's worth totally being the Lord of your life, because he can do so much more than we could ask or dream or imagine. I mean, he's so big. So from that, my heart just became ignited for missions, and I ended up in Honduras working at an orphanage. I ended up in Cambodia for a little bit, working with girls that were bought out of the slave trade, the sex slave trade. When my husband and I met right after this experience, I basically told him, if you're going to date me, you're going to marry me, because I was done with the dating game. I had totally screwed that up from the age of 16 to 18. And so I told him,
gave every teenage girl the if you're going to date me, you're going to marry me.
Well, because I was done with the dating game. But maybe don't ever say that to a guy.
There's always an out before the I do.
Yes. And then I also told him, if you're going to marry me, I'm moving to Africa to be a missionary. So I'm a package deal. Like, I don't come without that. And he ended up claiming his major at UCLA to international development. And I was like, that's it. That was my sign. He's the one. By the way, I don't believe in the one, but that's another rabbit trail. But my husband's the one, because I chose him to be the one.
Can of worms
Right?
opened.
Let's just tuck that back in.
We're going to bring you back for another episode for you to explain that. But for now, we'll pretend that was the most romantic act of choosing a major.
Yes.
That you
right?
could,
Yeah, totally romantic. That was my sign.
I love that. That was your gold dust.
Yes, for him. Yeah.
Love it.
So anyhow, when we ended up married, I wanted to go into missions right away. He, on the other hand, is a complete planner. And he was very much okay, so if you want to go to Africa, let's go to college, get really good grades. We're going to get really good jobs, really good careers. We'll buy a house. We'll have kids. And then after our kids are raised, we'll sell the house, or we'll rent it out for like money, so we never have to raise support. Like, that's just my husband's mind. Yeah. And so he like worked that all out, and at the end of that, we were going to move to Africa to start an orphanage.
Interesting how it's played out.
Right? Because then I started praying, and I was like, God, I just pray over this spiritual apathy. Break this spirit within him. Just kidding.
This is why you should always pray for your spouse. That's amazing.
So we
I am not editing that out. That is going live.
Please do. That's terrible. I didn't really pray like that. That kind of.
Don't pull back now. We know it's true.
I did pray. I was like, God, I just really want to go. Like,
Yeah.
I've always just been a person that wants to go. And so one night, 9 months into our marriage, which, by the way, was the hardest thing ever, because I was like, I finally did it the Christian way.
Yeah.
I finally was good in dating and tried my best to be God-honoring.
Fair enough.
And it's still like, first year of marriage sucked. Can I say that?
Yes.
Okay.
I love that you just covered the mic.
I know, right?
Sucked. Oh, my word.
Pretend you didn't pick that up, Mike.
It's like you just spit cussing on the mic. You're trying to clean it off.
I was trying to protect it.
I mean, don't say it in front of my mom, but...
Okay, first year of marriage sucked. It was terrible. And I was like, this is what everyone was talking about that was supposed to be so great. And it was nothing but hard and disappointing. And I definitely told my husband that first couple months, I'm pretty sure we could still annul this.
Oh.
Yeah, it was bad. And so then one night, probably 9 months into our marriage, he turned over to me and he was like, you know what? The disciples just went. Maybe we should just go. And I honestly think in my heart of hearts that he was just looking for a way out as well. Like, maybe we just needed a change of scenery. And it was the best thing for us. We ended up back in YWAM doing a school together, the same school that I'd done before. I always tell people I did 2 of these schools because there's a special place in heaven for me.
Or because it took a lot more to get you caught up.
Really had a lot to work on in me.
Let's be real.
Yeah, that's probably more like it. So I did the second school with my husband, and it was probably, the best thing for our marriage. It really transformed who became the center of our marriage. And it was like, obviously God, but you don't realize that the first year of your marriage.
Would you say that was really, because you said it sucked and was a hard first year, but that it had a lot to do with what was the focus and the center and the driving force within your marriage?
I think it had a lot to do with a lot.
Yeah.
But yes, probably.
Because I always say Andy and I also had a really hard beginning, but I look back and I'm like, we had to be the 2 most self-centered, stubborn individuals trying to live together.
Yes.
And it took a live human being, a baby, to break the depth of selfishness that we both had. And not that I say babies fix marriages, by no means is that necessarily true, but in our case, I still look at Josiah and think that kid was God's grace on our marriage.
Absolutely.
Because God used him to turn us both back to God. And not that we were rebelling, but you know what I mean? So I was thinking as you're saying that it's amazing what it can do to your marriage when
Absolutely.
both people get their hearts turned back to God, and all of a sudden what sucks can suddenly be amazing.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, I totally would not annul my husband now. I don't even think I could divorce him now.
That's good. Did you hear that, Zach? You're in.
I'm committed. And he basically told me that he was ready to move down to Mexico. So we sold all of our brand new wedding gifts.
Wow.
And yes, and we moved. But I didn't expect us to end up in Mexico. My husband picked it because practically minded. He was like, this is the cheapest one I can find.
Oh my goodness. Okay, it's not right to interrupt, but I have to tell you this. Part of why we ended up in Mexico was it was the cheapest international. We had zero connection. Yes. See, the Holy Spirit speaks through frugal, I'm just kidding, cheapskates.
Works through cheap people.
Yes. That's what drew our hearts together. We're both cheapskates.
Yes.
Or both our husbands are. But we love them and we'll stay married forever.
Yes. And they're good for us.
They're very good.
Yes.
I think this podcast interview pretty much proves we need these men in our lives.
Oh, yes.
To edit 90% of what comes out of our mouths.
About 95%, let's be real. That's why I'm talking so long, so that he'll have at least a couple nuggets to throw in there.
Grab something.
So we moved on to Mexico, and I didn't expect us to end up there after our school. And we did. So after God radically transformed our marriage through this second DTS, we went to Panama and Costa Rica, worked there for a little bit. And when we came back, my husband was like, I really feel like God's calling us to stay in Mexico. And I told him, I'm really feeling like this is not Africa. So God is not bad at geology.
That would be geography.
Or geography. Or English.
This is so much gold, Katrina, so much.
You got better grades than I did in school, obviously.
And then we went back to school.
Because I apparently needed it.
Clearly I slept through some of my classes.
I almost said geometry and I changed it to geology as I was saying it.
Geo something.
That's geo.
You should have just cut it off like the cool kids do.
Right?
It's way too long of a word to say the whole thing.
Totes, right?
I'll put it on the Insta. Whew, man.
So anyway, I did not think we'd end up in Mexico. And I was very disappointed that we ended up there until God really showed me that he was using it as part of my journey. And he uses these stages of my life where I'm like, God, this is not what I had planned. This is not what I thought we talked about. And he used it, one, to introduce me to Bethany.
Yes.
Which, when we came to Massachusetts, was like my saving grace every weekend.
Oh, I miss those days.
I know. It's because I'm such an extrovert. I need to be around somebody that gets my heart.
Yeah.
Bethany got my heart since she knew me from Mexico. So that was good. It was a good transition into Massachusetts and that Snowmageddon.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
So actually, one of the reasons that you came to mind and having on the podcast is that, hey, girl, we talk a lot about running your race in your place. And you have clearly traveled the world. You've seen a lot of different places. You've done a lot of different things. From the moment I met you, I knew that missions was so your heart. But what I've loved about you is that every place that I've seen you go, you have been fully there. Even when you wrestled with it, you have embraced that place. And so in Mexico, for instance, other than you telling me, I would have never been like, clearly this woman does not want to be here. Like, you were there, like fully there. And I saw God use you and work both in your life and anybody who came into contact with you. When you were in Africa, you were in Africa and fully present. But then what a huge, God calling your husband to go into seminary off the mission field. That's a major life change, culture shift. But you came to Massachusetts, which was not an easy move. And you came to the most insane winter that I remember in my whole life. And you continued to choose joy in being present. And I'm not saying that isn't that you didn't have a hard time, you weren't struggling. But when I joke about missing the days when you're here every weekend. And I do, because I love you. But the fact that you're not here every weekend because you've built relationship and community, you're involved in your church, all these things. I just think that's such a testimony of who you are. You, to me, embody the whole vision behind this of running your race in your place. And you're about a year off of another transition. And I just love your heart of, okay, God, what you call us to, that's what we're going to do. And I love that about you.
Thank you. That means a lot to me. My mom raised me on the phrase, it's 95% attitude. And so it's 5% whatever truth of your situation is. The other 95% is what you choose your attitude to be.
I love that.
I know, right?
That explains you so well.
Right? Because there is truth. Obviously, there's hard things in life, and my life has not always been roses and cupcakes. Or rainbows and cupcakes, whatever the phrase is.
Geology and cupcakes.
Or geometry and cupcakes.
It's just not been that.
But I really do believe that whatever your truth is, yes, that is truth of what is happening in your circumstances. But what you choose to reflect from that, you can still be a vessel and a lighthouse and, the salt among the earth because you choose Jesus, you choose joy. Yeah, it's going to be hard. You can also acknowledge that things are hard, but I do believe in choose joy.
I love that too about you, that you also, you're not like I'm just happy all the time. And like you are honest. And I feel like that's our hearts are connected. And we've got that sisterhood that you've been really honest about what's been hard. Mm-hmm. But I think we laugh together as much, definitely more even than we've shed tears together. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate it. I love that. I love what your mom, I love your mom. Know, so right? It doesn't surprise me that she's so got a lot of wisdom, that woman. So, question, in this season, because we talked about traveling, your husband has been how long now?
We've been there for 3 years.
3 years you've lived in Massachusetts.
Yes.
So what does your current season of life look like?
My current season is a little bit more grounded now. We are not just hopping on planes and flying all over the place because we did just have a son a little over a year ago. We're now pregnant with our second one, which is so exciting. I've always just wanted to be a mom. So this is my season. I've always dreamed of this season. I've always wanted this season of life. I love being a mom. I also get to be a paid mom because I am also a full-time nanny at this point in my life. I have a 2.5-year-old little girl that I nanny for between 45 to 50 hours a week.
Wow.
I love her. I absolutely love her. Sometimes I joke around that she's my favorite child. I don't know if I can do that.
Poor thing.
I know. But I love my son Athanasius. He is just such a joy. And it's easy in this season of life for me to choose joy because this has always been my dream. I love being a mom. I know this sounds terrible, but if I could just be barefoot in the kitchen, popping out babies. I am every feminist's worst dream. Or worst nightmare. I'm so sorry, women of the world out there that have fought for equality.
So many things. So many things. Well, first of all, you were an incredible wife and mom. You, like you said, maybe this is an easier season because you've always wanted to be a mom. Mm-hmm. I'm sure even in the joys of being a mom, even wanting to be a mom, there's also challenges with every season. What does that look like in this season for you? What do you find probably most challenging about this time?
I think the most challenging is where I place my value now. Because when I was in a workplace, it was a lot easier to place my value on what I could do. And even in ministry, because my husband and I have obviously always been involved deeply in ministry, coming from the mission field and then coming to seminary where we started working deeply in the church. It's really easy to get my value from what people say my value is in the workplace or in a church or in ministry. And so now, I mean, my son can't talk yet, so he can't tell me how valuable I am.
When the people you serve only have about 3 words.
Right? Mama doesn't exactly equate to this is how hard of a worker you are, or it doesn't really, it's harder to find my identity. And remembering to find my identity in Christ through this season, because sometimes I think it is easier to be outside the house and having people tell you how valuable you are to something.
Absolutely.
So that's been kind of hard for me to remember that my value has always come from Christ. My value will always come from Christ. And especially in this season when I can't get my value from anything else or prove to myself on Facebook that I'm the greatest mom out there. Like you're not pinning things every day. Oh my gosh, I had to delete Pinterest from my phone. It is such a coveting thing for me.
First of all, I feel, having walked through that young mom and speaking to other young moms, I think that's just a very shared wrestling in that season. But what are some of your favorite parts of this stage in life nannying, you have little Faye, baby on the way. What are some of the things you're just loving right now?
Oh, I love the freedom of having my own schedule. My kids are luckily in that that stage of life that they have to do what I want to do.
Nice.
And so,
you are the CEO.
Right? So if I want to go to the library, we're going to the library. If I want to go to a park, we're going to a park. I just have so much freedom. I can do my laundry when I want to get it done. I can do my dishes when I want to get them done. I mean, all within reason, but...
While you're barefoot, of course.
Right.
I see how it goes.
Yes, but I love the freedom of it's my schedule, my time. And I know this isn't going to last forever. I know once the kids have an opinion, then I got to start taking that into consideration.
It's an honest answer.
Yes.
I'll consider your opinion. So what is right now for you... how are you growing just spiritually? Like, what are your favorite ways right now that you're kind of learning and growing in the midst of being a young mom at home with the kids?
So I have found nap time when the kids go down for their naps. I'm a lucky enough mom. My kids go between 2 to 3 hours at the same time. So I have 2 to 3 hours that is dedicated my block of I got 30 minutes to get anything in my house that's going to be a distraction done. And then I just spend the rest of the time in my Bible. I read New Morning Mercies by Paul Tripp because of you.
Yes.
Because of you.
I love it.
Oh, yeah. I have a Bible Gateway app that sends me an email, actually. It sends me an email that is for women, and I just spend time reading their scriptures and their little devotionals. Our church sends out a devotional, so I spend time reading that. It's like the most that I've ever done in my devotional time ever, where it's just a chunk of time
Love
that I spent with God. I also just found adult coloring books that are the verses, Bible verses.
Yes.
And I, unlike you, Bethany, I am not like naturally artistic. And so I do try keeping a prayer journal, but my prayer journal is like so superficial. It gets I'm actually
that question is still coming.
It's very surface level. It's like, dear God, thank you for my kids and my husband and my friends.
Amen.
And I'm bored. I'm bored writing.
The end. I mean, amen.
Right. So I found this coloring book app really helps me stay focused, and I can repeat the verse over and over and over again.
I love that.
And I have a spiritual mentor that I meet with weekly who has also challenged me to memorizing chunks, like chapters of the Bible at a time. So I know this all sounds like a ton, and I just want to be honest, I've never done like this much.
No, because it's a season.
It's a total season.
Which I love. You are embracing the opportunity that this season brings. Yeah. It may not look like that for everyone listening. Exactly. But I love that you could have chosen a lot of different things with a 3-hour block.
Yes.
And just you saying 30 minutes to get stuff that could be distracting out of the way, and then Jesus time. I think that's incredible.
Oh, yeah. It's been so good. It's been so... that's why I have joy when the kids wake up from their nap.
Amen.
Because I chose Jesus during that time.
Jesus is the reason you're alive.
There are days.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I love them. But it's a toddler and one that's going into toddlerhood. So this last week, though, I have also been embracing nap during their nap since I'm recently pregnant, and all I want to do is sleep. Amen. So I have not been choosing Jesus, and I just also want to put that out there so I don't look extremely holy. I also do choose napping.
I think the rest of the interview is kind of leveling all this out.
Right?
Just kidding. No, I'm not.
We know really you.
We know you're the real deal here.
There's no fooling anyone at this point.
You're smart, though. You were smart to nap now. Because...
Oh, I thought you were saying smart about the geology
thing. No, I didn't mean that. But no, you're smart to nap right now. Enjoy.
I need it.
Yeah, for real. And but that actually leads into the question, though, because the next thing is, how are you caring for yourself physically? Like, just your person.
So... my husband and I are really into health right now. We've been on a huge health kick for about a year. Not so much exercise, even though we did buy Y gym memberships.
Good job.
Which has been exciting. My kids hate the daycare, so
Oh.
It doesn't work out that well. But we've also been doing the Whole30 and implementing that, like really trying to keep our diet very healthy. And nobody hate me for saying this. This sounds really dumb and really like...
You basically insulted every feminist on the planet. So
I'm good.
I think the gate's wide open.
Hit everyone at this point. Offend everyone.
Awesome.
So I do tend to run a smaller frame in general.
You are teeny tiny.
I am.
It's adorable.
My nickname growing up was Teeny Trini. So, yes. Did you know that?
No, but that nickname is about to carry on, my friend.
I was Teeny Trini growing up, and I'm still Teeny Trini. And so now that I'm pregnant, the thing that I'm doing for myself, for my body, is that I have put no limits on my diet. I am eating donuts, and my thing right now is chocolate coconut milk.
Ooh,
I love
yum.
chocolate coconut milk, and I dip graham crackers in it, and I just give myself complete freedom so that there's no more filter on my diet.
So I'm going to say this too, because obviously there's a side of women that we talk about like, oh, if I could just lose 10 pounds. But there is also an entire population of people that are on the other end of that spectrum where gaining weight is a lot of work.
It is, yeah.
And I've had a couple of friends through the years who have opened up about, and honestly, I'm on the spectrum of, man, if I could lose the 10 pounds, which to be real, I try not to say because I have a daughter who, that's the last thing I want her to be thinking about that I'm thinking about. Mm-hmm. But the other side can be hard too. It can be hard when you feel like, okay, I'm just tiny and women judge me for it. And I feel like they hate me because but I literally, this is just who I am.
Yeah.
So we preach this message of love yourself no matter how God made you. But then the poorest teeny Trini in the corner and we're all like, I hate you. You know, you're pregnant and you don't look like you are.
Yeah.
Or, which I feel like is...
I definitely get that a lot. I get people telling me quite often, like, oh, I hate you. I hate that you can't ever put on weight. And it is, I mean, when I do want to complain about it, I got to a point where I couldn't wear LuLaRoe leggings. They were baggy on me, and everyone was like, they're one size fits all, but I couldn't fit into size 0 jeans. And I remember people like, I wanted to complain about it because I couldn't find clothes that fit me.
Right.
I was nursing, and so I had lost all that baby weight, and there was obvious reasons behind being that thin. But there were a lot of people that were like, oh, I hate you, and I couldn't complain about it because every time I would complain about it, people would just roll their eyes. Or like, I wanted someone to understand that it's also hard being on the other end when I was trying to put on weight.
I want women to hear this, honestly, because I think it's legit. And I get to look you in the face, so I can see that there's emotion behind this.
I'm also pregnant, so there's emotion behind everything.
There's truth in that. But no, this is one of those things, women, as far as being for one another and being careful about the way that we speak to each other and the way that we speak about each other, because it's easy when you feel like you relate to people. Like, I just feel like the whole, I'm so fat, like that conversation is unfortunately very common among women. And I feel for people who have that smaller frame. And you know what? You should be able to celebrate your body even when your wrestling is the other direction, as far as it's hard to find clothes that fit and aren't baggy. But we should be encouraging you the same way we would our sister, that when she's like, oh, I just want to lose 10 pounds. We're like, no, you're beautiful. Like, it needs to be across the board, regardless of whether I need to gain 10 pounds or lose 10 pounds, or whether you don't need to gain or lose anything, because you're healthy the way, and that's for you. You're somebody that I'm like, you're healthy, and that's important.
Yes.
And that should be important for all of us.
Absolutely. I totally believe we should celebrate health.
Yeah. I tell my scale all the time, get over yourself. I'm healthy.
Right?
Leave me alone.
You don't know what you're talking about, scale.
That's how I justify. I love that. Okay, so in this season with kids, you said, like, obviously you have a pretty, you were saying, like, a free schedule is in, you get to kind of decide where to take the kids. But is there anything that's kind of on the shelf right now for you that with having a young kid that can, especially when nap times are important schedule keeping, that you're like, maybe in another season, but just not this one.
Absolutely. Right. Because I am an extreme extrovert. And like I said, it kind of comes back to that value thing. A lot of my value comes from what people tell me, how valuable people tell me I am.
Yeah.
And so a lot of my value was coming from the things that I can do, the things that I can contribute. And my son obviously makes that more difficult for me to be able to be as involved as I once was. And feeling like I have to apologize for that, or apologize for my son, who is not an extrovert. He so far seems to be a mama's boy, kind of. He just wants to be in my arms and nobody else's. And so I'm trying to run around like I used to and do all the things that I used to do. And so I am learning at this point. I wouldn't even say like I've completely shelved it, but I am learning my boundaries of what I can commit to ministry-wise and what I'm allowed to still do, while still making sure that my priority, 1 is God, 2 is my husband, 3 is my kid. Learning those priorities and where that falls. And I read that book, The Best Yes.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. It was really good.
We'll link it in the show notes. That is a really good
That was a
read.
good one to just remind myself that there needs to be boundaries. And even when it comes to ministry, because yes, we are all part of the body, but sometimes you need to be a pinky toe and not a foot or a hand.
I love the wisdom too. And you just kind of, you talked about it for a moment, but we had a more in-depth conversation about some of those boundaries are determined by our other ministries, such as our kids and their wirings, because you and I share that we're both extroverted, and both of us now have a kid that's introverted. Yeah. And sometimes my boundaries need to be determined by, for me, my daughter, but for you, your son's needs. Yeah. Because introverts need time away from crowds of people. And so as moms, and especially at your stage in life, he can only get away from crowds of people if you take him. Exactly. And so, yeah, that's a big, I appreciate your wisdom. And I know you're saying like, I'm just learning this. I haven't, but just that you're knowing that about your son says so much too. Cause I think sometimes kids just kind of, we never know whether they're introvert, extrovert, or whatever. Cause you know, we just drag them around wherever. And I think it's really such a gift to Thay that as his mom, you're kind of recognizing those things in him and trying to love him by giving him that space. That's awesome.
Absolutely. I really do believe that a mom's first ministry is her kids. You know, God has given us the commandment to teach them and train them and to make them our ministry. And so I really do believe it's hard making that transition because it comes back to that value thing. Yeah. But it is important that he grows up knowing that it's that church is a safe place to be, and it's a good place to be, and creating those boundaries.
So speaking of value, I am wondering if you could share with our listeners, what is the most superficial thing about you?
I have been prepping for this question.
Maybe we start with that. You didn't prep for any other question except for the one about what's most superficial. That might be the answer.
I know you guys think this is a fun question, but it stresses me out. I am a person that kind of gets this reputation for sometimes being superficial or fake because I have an instantly friendly personality, instantly friendly extrovert in your face kind of person. So I get that reputation of being superficial often, and this question freaks me out. So I came up with a good one.
Ooh, yay!
A really superficial one.
That's exactly what we need.
Yes. The most superficial thing about me is what I read. I've been listening to your podcast, and all these people read really good, in-depth books that, like, cause you to think. I am all about give me a teen fiction, like young adult fiction that has no substance. I don't want any feelings or emotions involved. Like, I just want to read something that's mindless. And so, and I like the young adult ones because they're usually clean. Like, I'm not going to come across something smutty. But I also just
I love that you used the word smutty.
I did join a book club, and they were reading these, like, really in-depth reads.
You should start a book club for teenagers.
Right?
Pretend you're mentoring them, but really you're finally having a reason to read their books.
Oh, I don't need a reason. I just read them to read them. I'll stay up until 11 o'clock at night reading a mindless book just for the escape of it. So that's the most superficial thing about me. I don't like thinking books.
That explains the geology element earlier.
And now you know why.
I'm just kidding.
There's a lot of young adult novels.
You made me look like an idiot.
Look stupid.
Well, Katrina, this has been so much fun. And I'm so grateful that you were willing to come up and interview in my amazing studio.
I love this studio.
AKA my master bedroom. Only the real close friends.
Real homey feel.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Because it literally is my home. I think we're going to end up having you on again. If for no other reason, you open some cans of worms. And I have a feeling listeners are going to have questions.
So much to go into.
Well, thank you for today. Thank you for being who you are. And I love you.
I love you. Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.
This was fun.
I did sweat through this. But
let the record show her armpits are definitely soaked through. All right, girls. So that was my friend Katrina. And I hope that you also enjoyed a healthy level of laughter, because I laughed so hard interviewing her, just sharing stories, that my stomach hurt afterwards. And I remember thinking when I was listening back, well, if they wanted a really clear picture of what it's like to have coffee with Katrina and I, this is it. And honestly, Jen, it's probably why we have the other one of us interview best friends. We basically just gave an example of what happens when you put two besties together and laughter ensues. And I'm just going to get real. Andy edited out a lot of laughter. So that's after editing. So you can imagine how out of control we got. But Jen, I'm dying to know. And we haven't talked about it before, so I'm excited to hear. What did you think of the interview? You didn't get to be there with me, so you kind of listened to it just like our listeners for the first time on the podcast. Give me your thoughts.
Okay, so I know Katrina a little, and the thing that I love about her is she's just authentic. And it can be authentic about, like, Jesus, or it can be authentic about, I just want to be a stay-at-home mom, pregnant in the kitchen, barefoot. And I'm like, okay. She is who she is. And she's just so secure in that. And she's stinking hilarious. And, like, she tells it like it is. Like, talking about, like, 16 to 18. Oh, girls doing some bad stuff in those times. Things that, as a mom is probably wringing her hands a lot. But I loved how she just talked about that and talked about her parents and just the things that they did to try and, like, love her and protect her and just her relationship with them. I love that. One thing that hit me so hard was when she was at YWAM. And it's even before, like, that whole gold dust thing. What hit me was how she confessed. And the leader had grace for her, but then said, you need to now go and apologize to people, and you need to make things right. And that's when she kind of had that, like, crisis moment of, like, hold up, God, like, I need to know you're real. I want to see gold dust before I have to go and do this really hard thing. And I just think so many of us, like, confessing is hard enough. Like, going to someone and saying, hey, just so you know, like, I'm wicked screwing up in this, or this, whatever it is. Like, that's hard for any of us. If we're 18, if we're 25, if we're 45, like, that is a super hard thing to do. But then to know it's not, and, like, the Bible says, like, it's not just confessing, like, it's going and making things right and asking for forgiveness. And those people that we've hurt, like, making those things right. And I just think we all can relate to that, of just that, like, that next step of, like, oh, hold up, God. Like, if I'm going to do these wicked hard things, I need to know you're real. And how, like, God was just like, do you really need to see a physical thing to know that I'm with you? Like, that was so powerful. And how just the rest of that day, how that progressed, and they had that amazing worship time. And then the gold dust thing blew my mind. Those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I absolutely loved every part of the story, but the part that you just mentioned was definitely one that stood out to me. The leader's response, like just the grace, and even that she wasn't just like, oh, it's fine, no big deal, but
Yes.
like walked her through, like you said, the actual repentance. Like, it's not just about being sorry, it's turning from, like, it's making things right, it's choosing a different direction. And yeah, and I also, in the whole reason why I thought of Katrina as we were like, who do we interview, is she really is, if you know her, somebody that's just all in everywhere that she goes. And I mean, not everybody has a story of, I've lived in Mexico and Africa and Massachusetts and all of these things, but she is somebody that's actually opened my eyes to the fact that even those things that seem like really exciting and they're living this adventure, that there are challenges to that, like relationships and friendships that you kind of have and then you have to walk away from, and starting over and finding community in all these places that you go and adjusting to new cultures. And I just appreciate so much that even in the midst of all of that, that she has stayed, she's pushed through, and she's really intentionally sought out everywhere that she's gone, like sought out community. She's immediately found places to serve. And if you ever like meet her, Zach, her husband, and their little guy, Athanasius, or they literally are world changers. They just are. Like, everywhere they go, they impact people for the kingdom. And I just love that about them. It's honestly a privilege to be able to call them friends. And I know I won't have them forever, because he will graduate seminary and God is going to place him somewhere. But I love the time that I have with her. And I'm so glad we got to interview her. This was a fun one for sure.
So another thing that I thought about that she said, just the whole body image thing and weight, and just like how you were saying, like, you don't say, oh, I wish I could lose 10 pounds, or say negative things about your body in front of your daughter, because you don't want her thinking that about you or herself. And how we as women do it to each other all the time. Like, oh, I wish blah, blah, blah. I wish this was different, blah, blah, blah. I wish that was different. You know, she may be on the other end of the spectrum where she wishes she could gain weight, and it's super hard for her, and it's hard to find clothes. And I just think that we need to love each other well, and kind of have an air of caution about body shaming ourselves in front of other people. And body shame. I don't think that any women really intentionally try to body shame other women, but when we do say things like, oh, I wish I could fill in the blank, we unintentionally body shame other people too. So that was just super good for me to just kind of take away, like, yeah, like, that may be my issue, but it may not be her issue, and her issue aren't my issues, and just to be sensitive to that. So I appreciated her talking about that and just her sensitivity towards it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, another great episode, another good week. Honestly, hoping that episode made you laugh until you cry. Those are the best laugh, when tears are flowing because you're just laughing so hard. So I hope you enjoyed it. Ladies, thank you so much again for giving us your time this week, for sharing in these stories with us. And we would love to hear from you. Let us know how they're impacting you. What are the things that God is speaking to you through these women's lives? And again, if you know a woman that you're like, oh my goodness, we would love to hear her story on this podcast. So if you don't already, follow us on social media. Jump on there, @HeyGirlPod. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And just another reminder that our 6-day devotional on the YouVersion Bible app is up. It's live. You can go and download it. First, get the YouVersion Bible app, and then download our plan. And it's the Hey Girl devotional, and just something that Jenn and I have really enjoyed getting the opportunity to write that and put that out there. So check them out. And until next week, we love you. Run your race in your place and do your thing, sister. Bye. We could do that.
Wait, what are the ones that they do like the... That just reminds me of Pitch Perfect.
No, I'm seeing High School Musical.
Oh. Yeah, I wasn't following you.
Okay. I'm ready.
What was the whistle?
I don't know. I didn't even try and whistle. It just came out.
I can't whistle this one.
It's like when I snort on accident. Sometimes noises just come out of my face and I don't know where they come from.
Hey, girls. No, hold on. I got nervous. I didn't know if I should say welcome to another episode or say my name. So
I thought you froze because you're like, and your mouth is still open. That was fantastic.
Words wanted to come out, but they didn't know.
You're like, hey, girls. Yeah, that's all I got.